Leaves rustled, but the sound felt wrong. Too heavy. Too deliberate. A low growl sliced through the silence, freezing everything in place. Suddenly, the underbrush exploded in a frenzy of claws and snarls. Hello everyone. Welcome to the channel. Before we dive into today's stories, I'd like to ask for your support by subscribing to the channel. Your subscription is very important to us, so please subscribe to stay updated with future stories. Also, leave a comment letting me know which city in the world you're watching from. Now, let's get into the first attack. The morning air was crisp, a sharp chill that hinted at the early arrival of fall, the kind of cold that bites at your skin when you stop moving, but felt perfect when you're on a bike. Legs pumping, wind whipping through your hair. It was the kind of morning that made everything feel alive. The sky a pale blue canvas, the trees whispering in the breeze, and the promise of an open trail ahead. I had driven up from Bozeman the day before, eager to escape the stresses of school and focus on something simple. There was a quiet satisfaction in the sound of tires crunching on gravel, the steady rhythm of my pedaling pushing me forward. Glacier National Park had always been on my list, but it felt like a dream I never had the time for. Now, with final exams behind me, I was here, alone, but not lonely, my bike and I weaving through the wilderness like we belonged. The trail was one of the quieter paths near Lake McDonald, the kind of area that wasn't too populated, but still a popular spot for a few hikers. I'd read up on it before I left, noting that while the area had bears, it was relatively safe during the daylight hours, especially with human activity nearby. But even then, I'd taken precautions, stayed on the trail, made noise when I could, carried bear spray just in case. I'd done this before, biked in the mountains, hiked solo, but Glacier felt different. The mountains felt taller here, the trees more ancient. There was a rawness to it, an unspoken power that pulsed through the forest, the kind of wildness that can either uplift or swallow you whole. I liked that feeling. It was an adrenaline rush that wasn't about speed or competition, but about pure presence. By the time I reached the first clearing, I'd been riding for an hour, the trail mostly empty. The gravel crunched under my tires in a steady rhythm, the path weaving in and out of groves of tall, thick trees that seemed to touch the sky. Occasionally, a bird would flutter past or a squirrel would dart across the trail, but otherwise, it was just me and the wilderness. The first few miles were exactly what I'd hoped for, peaceful, serene. The kind of calm that washes over you when you're far from the noise of everyday life. I slowed down, taking a moment to appreciate the quiet, inhaling the sharp scent of pine. There was something magical about it, a perfect balance of exhaustion and satisfaction. I was just about to round a bend in the trail when I heard it, the rustling in the bushes, deep and heavy, like something large was moving through the undergrowth. I froze, my heart rate spiking as I glanced around, trying to pinpoint the source. It didn't sound like a deer. No, this was something bigger, and bigger could only mean one thing. I had been warned. Stay alert, be aware, don't become complacent. Bears, especially black bears, were known to inhabit these woods. I took a slow breath and reminded myself that most bears were more scared of humans than we were of them. Still, the pit in my stomach twisted. My eyes scanned the trees ahead, looking for any sign of movement, my grip tightening on the handlebars. All right, just breathe, Meg, I muttered under my breath. I shifted my weight and began pedaling slowly forward, hoping to make enough noise to alert whatever was in the bushes that I wasn't a threat, just another human passing by. The rustling grew louder, closer, and then, out of nowhere, it happened. There was a sudden crash of branches, a blur of dark fur, and before I could even process what was happening, something collided with me. The impact sent me flying off the bike, my stomach flipping as I was tossed through the air like a rag doll. I landed hard, my body slamming against the ground with a sickening thud. Cane exploded in my wrist as I tried to brace myself, and the world spun wildly. For a second, I thought I might pass out from the shock. Then I heard it, a low, guttural growl, a deep rumble that vibrated in my chest. My heart skipped a beat, The bear had come out of the bushes, and now it was on top of me. I could feel its weight pressing down, its hot breath against my face. It was huge. Its dark fur seemed to shimmer in the filtered sunlight. Its claws, long and sharp, glinted as it swiped at my legs. I barely had time to react before its claws raked across the flesh of my right thigh. The searing pain shot up through my body, and I screamed, "Oh my God, get off me!" I scrambled, desperate to get away, to push the animal off me, but it was no use. The bear's enormous paws pushed harder against my chest, pinning me to the ground. My legs were trapped, twisted awkwardly beneath me. I could feel the bear's weight pressing into me, suffocating. I knew that black bears were not typically aggressive unless threatened or cornered, but this one wasn't backing off. It was attacking, driven by something primal, hunger, fear, or territorial instinct. It didn't care who I was, why I was here. He was just a bear doing what bears do. Get off. Sir, I gasped, trying to shove its massive form away with my good arm, my left wrist. The pain in my right wrist was unbearable, but I couldn't stop moving, couldn't stop pushing. The bear growled again, a guttural, rasping sound. It swiped at my leg again, the claws digging deeper, and I let out a strangled cry of pain. In that moment, everything became a blur. I couldn't think, couldn't breathe. My mind screamed one word over and over again. Escape. I had to get out. My bike was somewhere behind me, but I didn't dare look. Couldn't. My hands were slick with blood, my breath coming in shallow gasps. I couldn't just lie here and wait for it to finish. It would kill me if I stayed down. The bear leaned back for a moment, its snout sniffing the air, its ears twitching. It wasn't leaving, but for some reason, it hesitated. I took the opportunity. With a surge of adrenaline, I pushed myself to my feet, my broken wrist sending a shock of pain through my arm. I lurched to the side, stumbling away from the bear. The creature didn't charge right away, but I knew it was watching, waiting. My mind raced. I had to get out of its territory, out of its line of sight. I hobbled, my legs weak, the blood from my legs staining the ground beneath me. Somehow, I managed to make it a few steps before my knees buckled beneath me. I collapsed onto the trail, gasping for air, my vision blurry and spinning. The world tilted, and I thought I might pass out, but I forced myself to focus on the bear. Where was it? Was it still behind me? I dared to glance back. The bear was gone, just like that. It hadn't finished me off. It had only scratched the surface, but I was left with its mark. Deep, jagged claws in my leg, a broken wrist, and a heart pounding like I'd just run a marathon. I lay there for a moment, too stunned to move, too terrified to do anything but breathe. I didn't know if I was lucky or just foolish for not acting faster. But all I knew in that moment was that the forest had changed. I wasn't in control anymore. The wilderness had taken its place, and I was just another intruder. After what felt like an eternity, I finally gathered what was left of my strength and pulled myself up. The pain in my wrist was unbearable, but the fear of being attacked again was even worse. I had to keep moving to find help, and I had to leave the bear behind, or at least try. The park would never be the same for me again. The pain hit me first, sharp, intense, and immediate, as I stumbled to my feet. My wrist, the one I'd instinctively tried to protect when I hit the ground, felt like it was broken. It wasn't just a dull ache or a sprain. It felt as if something deep inside had fractured, shattered. Every move sent a jagged pulse of pain radiating up my arm, and I could barely make a fist without it feeling like the bones were grinding together. But it was the gnawing fear, the dread that ran through me like cold water, that made everything worse. The bear was still out there, somewhere behind me, and I was trapped in a place where nature didn't care if I was hurting or scared. I had to get away. I had to escape. With my legs trembling beneath me, I shifted my weight onto my left leg and tried to force my body upright. The scratches on my right thigh burned like fire, but I didn't have time to stop. I couldn't stay here. The forest was too quiet, too still, and the air felt thick with the presence of something I couldn't see. My breath came out in ragged gasps, but I forced myself to keep moving, hobbling forward on my good leg, my left arm cradling the broken wrist against my chest. I looked back, just once, just to see if the bear was still there. I saw nothing, just the dark shadows between the trees. But I didn't trust it. Could be anywhere. The thought of turning around, seeing those massive claws again, made my heart race faster than my legs could carry me. Every step felt like it was taking everything out of me. I hadn't realized how hard it would be to escape from a predator like that. How heavy my body would feel once the adrenaline started to wear off. I tried to push through, but the pain in my wrist was so overwhelming that I could barely think straight. The world felt like it was tilting around me, and for a moment, I was afraid I might lose my balance and fall again. I needed to stop. I needed to assess the damage, but the thought of just sitting still made my stomach churn with panic. Couldn't risk it. Not here. Not now. And then, just as I reached a slight incline where the trail curved, I heard it again. The crash of branches, the snap of leaves underfoot. It was distant, but it was unmistakable. The unmistakable sound of something big moving through the woods. My heart froze. My stomach dropped. No. Please don't let it be the bear. I leaned against a tree for support, the bark biting into my palm, and took shallow breaths, trying to calm myself. The trail had narrowed here, the overgrown bushes and underbrush crowding the sides. There wasn't much space to maneuver, and I knew if the bear decided to charge again, I'd have nowhere to run. I couldn't outrun it. I couldn't even ride my bike. Think. I whispered to myself, my voice trembling. There had to be something I could do. The bear spray was still clipped to the side of my bike, but my bike was probably 20 yards behind me, and there was no way I could get back to it without getting closer to the bear. I thought about yelling, making noise to scare it off, but I knew better. The bear had already been provoked. It had already attacked me once. I didn't want to risk making it angry again. I swallowed hard and tried to steady my breathing, my pulse hammering in my ears. The sound came closer. I wanted to run, but my legs wouldn't cooperate. My sight throbbed, a hot pain that felt like it was burning through my flesh. I could feel the blood, warm and sticky, seeping down my leg. The fear surged again. This is it, I thought. I'm gonna die out here, alone. The rustling was so close now that I could hear the leaves crunching under heavy paws. I held my breath, pressing my back against the tree as if somehow it would shield me from what was coming. My heart pounded so loud that I was sure the bear could hear it too. And then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw movement. A dark figure darted across the trail, breaking through the brush with incredible speed, and before I could even react, the bear lunged at me. I barely had time to scream before its body crashed into mine. The force was unreal, like a freight train smashing into a wall. I was thrown sideways, the air knocked from my lungs as I slammed into the ground again, my body scraping along the rough, uneven trail. I tasted dirt and pine needles, my mouth filling with the bitter, metallic taste of fear. This time, I didn't land on my back, but on my side, my injured wrist twisted painfully beneath me. My head spun, the edges of my vision blurring with the rush of blood. No. Get off me. Sir. I screamed, my voice hoarse and desperate, but the bear didn't listen. It stood above me, its massive paws pushing against my chest, pinning me to the ground. I could smell it now, earthy and wild, like wet fur and musk. Its hot breath fanned across my face as it leaned down, sniffing me, its snout brushing the side of my cheek. My whole body trembled in terror, but I couldn't move. The weight on top of me was crushing. It swiped at me again, its claws slicing through my jacket sleeve and grazing my skin. The pain shot up my arm like lightning, but I couldn't stop moving. I kicked out with my legs, trying to get some space, anything to get the bear off me. But it was no use. His weight was too much. I was trapped beneath it. Oh God. Why isn't it stopping? Sir. A primal panic swept over me, my heart crashing in my chest. The bear's eyes were dark, its expression unreadable. I couldn't understand what it wanted. Was it going to eat me? Was this its territory? Or was it just angry because I was in its way? I realized then that there was no way I could overpower it. I couldn't fight something that big. My wrist was useless, and the pain in my leg was unbearable. I couldn't even think straight, but I had to survive. I had to try. I dug deep into my survival instincts, forcing myself to think. Bear spray. It was still attached to my bike, but my bike was far away. I was too far from safety. I had nothing but my voice, my will to survive, and the desperation clawing at my chest. Please just leave me alone. Sir, I pleaded, tears streaming down my face. My throat felt raw from screaming. The bear sniffed me again, its hot breath sending shivers through my spine. But after a long, tense moment, it seemed to lose interest. Slowly, the pressure on my chest loosened, and the bear backed off, stepping away from me. Couldn't believe it. I could barely breathe, still trembling from the shock, but I managed to roll onto my back, gasping for air. The world felt like it was tilting around me, my head spinning from pain and panic. I didn't know why the bear had stopped. Was it confused? Was it sizing me up again, deciding if I was worth the fight? I didn't wait to find out. In a panic-fueled blur, I scrambled to my feet, stumbling away from the bear, each step sending a shock of pain through my broken wrist and torn leg. The forest around me was silent again, eerily still, and I dared not look back. I had to get away. Just keep moving. Get to safety. But my legs weren't cooperating, and the forest felt like a labyrinth. My vision swam in and out, everything distorted, and I realized I was losing more blood than I'd thought. My breaths were shallow, and my body felt numb, except for the pain. Somehow, I kept moving forward, every step a fight for survival. It wasn't until I reached a small ridge with a break in the trees that I heard it again, the rustling of branches. But this time, it was different. The bear was retreating. The sound of its massive form crashing back into the woods was fading into the distance. I didn't stop moving, not for a second. The world was spinning, or maybe I was. I couldn't tell anymore. The pain in my leg was a constant, burning reminder that I wasn't out of danger yet, but I couldn't seem to stop moving. My body felt like it was made of lead, every step slow, every movement agonizing, but I was driven by something beyond physical pain now. Pure, unrelenting fear. I didn't know how much time had passed since the bear left, or if it was still nearby, but all I could think about was getting away. My wrist felt broken, the bones shifting with every jarring step, and the bleeding from my leg hadn't stopped. My shirt was soaked with sweat, and the pain was so intense I could hardly think straight. Took everything I had just to stay upright. The path before me was a blur of shadow and sunlight. My vision blurred from both panic and blood loss. Every time I breathed in, a wave of nausea followed. I could hear the faintest sounds of the forest around me, but it felt like I was moving through a dream, or maybe a nightmare. Keep going, just keep going, I whispered through gritted teeth, trying to push the fear aside. The words felt hollow. My body wanted to collapse, but I wouldn't let it. Not yet. I didn't even know where I was going. I'd lost all sense of direction. The trail was familiar to me when I started, but now, everything looked the same. The trees, the rocks, the undergrowth, everything was a blur of green and brown. The pain in my thigh was becoming unbearable, like hot knives piercing my skin with every step. Somehow, after what felt like hours of staggering through the woods, I made it to the edge of the trail. I collapsed onto a large rock, too exhausted to care about the dirt or the blood soaking through my pants. I let my head rest against the stone, breathing heavily, trying to steady my shaking hands. I tried to focus on the surroundings. The forest that once felt peaceful now felt alien, hostile. A chill had started to creep in as the sun sank lower, casting long shadows across the trees. I had no idea how long I'd been out here, but it was getting late. The world was darkening, and the only sounds were the whispers of wind through the trees and my own labored breathing. I need help, I said, my voice shaking. I fumbled for my phone, praying I had service. My fingers were slick with sweat and blood, but somehow I managed to pull it out. The screen flickered to life, but I didn't see the usual signal bars. My heart sank. No, I muttered, desperately swiping at the screen. There was no service. The isolation was suffocating. Alone, injured. The reality of my situation hit me like a wave, and for a moment I thought I might break. The tears started before I could stop them, hot and heavy against my cheeks. But there was no time for tears. I wiped my face and tried again. I couldn't sit here forever. The bear could come back. Worse, the night was coming, and I had no idea if anyone knew I was out here. No one would come looking for me unless I made it out. I had to survive. Think. Negan. Sink. My voice was hoarse from crying, but the words were a lifeline. I had to keep moving. I forced myself to my feet, my legs like jelly. Every step sent shockwaves of pain through my body, but I pushed on, one foot in front of the other, as the darkness started to settle around me. The trail wound through the trees, barely visible as the sun dipped behind the mountains, leaving the forest to darken. I'd pushed through it all, the fear, the pain, the crushing weight of being so completely alone, and focused on the one thing I had left, getting out. I'd gone maybe another mile when I saw the lights. They were faint, distant, like beacons in the dark. The sight of them brought a rush of hope. Other people. I'm not alone. I forced my body to move faster, the pain in my legs screaming at me, but I ignored it. I had to get there. I had to reach those lights. It took me another agonizing 20 minutes to stumble toward the distant glow. The trail had become steeper, more uneven, and I was too disoriented to tell if I was getting closer or farther away. But the lights kept flickering ahead, pulling me forward like a promise. And then, just as I thought I might collapse from exhaustion, I heard voices. I called, my voice hoarse, weak. My heart slammed against my ribs. The voices stopped. For a moment I thought I imagined them, but then a figure stepped out from the darkness. A man, tall and wearing a headlamp, his silhouette illuminated against the faint glow of a campfire. Hey, are you okay? He called, his voice filled with concern. He started walking toward me, his headlamp casting strange shadows across the trees. I didn't answer at first. My vision blurred and I felt my legs start to give way beneath me. I had made it. I had reached help. I gasped, struggling to catch my breath. My legs gave out, and I crumpled to the ground in a heap of exhaustion. I need help. I was attacked by a bear. Please help me. The man rushed over, kneeling beside me. Holy shit. His voice was low and tense as he assessed me quickly. Are you hurt? What happened? I was on the trail. I managed to whisper through gritted teeth, trying to focus. A bear, a black bear. I don't know how, but it attacked me. Get him. The man pulled out a flashlight from his belt and quickly checked my injuries, his face scrunching in concern when he saw the blood on my leg and wrist. You need to get to a hospital. Dow. I chant. I don't know if I can walk anymore. I admitted, my breath ragged. I was starting to feel the weight of everything, my body, the blood loss, the trauma. He glanced at his companion, a woman who had just emerged from the trees. We need to get her to a ranger station now, he said, his voice firm. Can you carry her? I'll manage. the woman said, her expression hardening. You stay here with her. I'll radio for help. Stay calm. The man nodded and stayed by my side, keeping his eyes on me. You're gonna be okay. We've got you. Help is on the way. I didn't know who these people were or if they were even rangers, but I didn't care. All I cared about was getting the hell out of here. Every breath felt like a struggle, but their presence, their reassurance, was a lifeline. Thank you, I whispered. Thank you so much. The woman disappeared into the trees again, and the man sat beside me, watching the trail for any signs of danger. His hand hovered over mine, as though offering comfort, but I couldn't focus on anything other than the overwhelming relief that washed over me as I realized I wasn't alone anymore. But even as I sat there, bleeding and trembling, my mind kept circling back to the bear. It wasn't over. Couldn't be. I knew it would haunt me, but for the first time since the attack, I allowed myself a fleeting moment of peace. Help had arrived, and I was going to make it out of here. For now, that had to be enough. The darkness pressed in around me, thick and suffocating, but the steady rhythm of the man's voice kept me grounded. I focused on his words, trying to breathe through the pain and the fear that still pulsed through me. His name was Adam, he told me when he knelt beside me, but I barely registered it. I was too overwhelmed by the waves of dizziness and terror that seemed to crash over me with every passing second. Adam's companion, a woman named Lily, had sprinted off to radio for help. I could hear her voice in the distance, sharp and urgent as she relayed our location to whoever was listening. But the world felt so distant, so alien to me now. I wasn't sure how much time had passed since the bear attacked me. Minutes, hours, or maybe even longer, but it didn't matter. All that mattered was that help was on the way, and I wasn't alone anymore. We're going to keep moving. Adam said softly, his hand brushing my shoulder gently. Can you stand? I shook my head, unable to muster the strength to rise on my own. The pain in my leg was unbearable, and every time I shifted my weight, it felt like the world tilted sideways. I wasn't sure how I was still conscious, but I knew I had to keep going. I can't walk, I gasped, my voice barely a whisper. Too weak. Adam didn't hesitate. I've got you, he said with a quiet determination, his hands gently sliding under my shoulders. We're not far from the ranger station. You just need to hang on. His grip was strong and reassuring, but I could feel every jolt of my body as he helped me move, the weight of my broken wrist and the deep scratches on my thigh threatening to overwhelm me. The world was a blur of trees and shadows as he guided me forward, one slow step at a time. It felt like we were crawling, even though I knew we were moving faster than I could have on my own. Every step was a battle, my legs barely holding me upright. Adam's voice never wavered, his encouragement steady as we continued through the forest. You're doing great, Megan. He said, his tone soothing. Just a little further. We're almost there. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to trust that the pain and fear would fade once we made it to safety. But every minute that passed felt like an eternity. My vision swam, and I could feel the blood on my leg cooling, sticky and clinging to my skin. I could still hear the growl of the bear in my mind, the way its claws had raked across my leg, its hot breath against my face. It was all I could think about. What if it comes back? I croaked, my voice strained. Adam's grip tightened on me. It won't, he said firmly. We've got a good lead on it. Bears don't usually stay in one place for long. I nodded weakly, but I wasn't sure I believed him. I'd seen how fast the bear could move, how relentlessly it had attacked. I wasn't sure anything could stop it, and part of me feared it was still out there, watching, waiting for the right moment to strike again. But Adam's voice remained steady, his words a lifeline in the dark. You're strong. You're going to make it out of here. Somehow, the words gave me a little hope. just enough to keep me moving. I focused on his voice, on the way he called me by name like he was trying to remind me that I wasn't just some random person out here in the woods. I was _Megan_, and Megan wasn't gonna die out here. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my shaking body. It was getting harder to focus, the world blurring around me, but I clung to the rhythm of Adam's steps, matching my breathing to his. "How far are we?" I asked, my voice hoarse. "Not far," he said, glancing at me. "We've got a good lead on Lily, and the ranger station's just a mile or two ahead. We're almost there." "Sir." His words should have been reassuring, but all I could think about was the pain in my leg, the coldness in my limbs, the way my body felt like it was shutting down. I had never realized how fragile I was, how vulnerable I could be in the face of something so primal, so wild. I tried to push those thoughts away. I had to make it. The woods felt endless as we moved forward, the trees thick and oppressive, their dark shapes pressing in around us. The trail had started to narrow, the brush growing denser as we moved deeper into the forest. Every rustling in the underbrush made my heart race, but Adam didn't falter. He kept moving, his grip steady, his voice constant. "You're doing great," he repeated, like a mantra. "Just a little longer." I didn't know how much time passed. Minutes, hours, maybe less. But eventually, I heard it. The unmistakable sound of voices, distant but clear. "Lily?" Adam called out. "Over here." Came the reply. Her voice was faint but distinct, and Adam's pace quickened in response. "We're almost there, Megan," Adam said, urgency creeping into his voice. "Hang on." I barely had the strength to respond. My body was beginning to shut down, and the cold was seeping in, making it harder to move. I could feel the heat from my injured legs slipping away, replaced by a numbness that spread quickly through my body. My vision started to blur again, and my head swam with dizziness. "Just a little longer," Adam whispered, his voice calm but firm. It was almost as if he were talking to himself, as much as he was talking to me. I couldn't keep my eyes open anymore. The pain in my wrist, my leg, and the exhaustion from the constant fear and panic had become too much. And then, just as I thought I might slip into unconsciousness, I felt its soft ground beneath my feet. The trail had leveled out, and suddenly, I was being guided across a wide clearing. The voices were closer now, and the air felt different, warmer, brighter. "We've got her," Adam shouted. My body felt light, as if it were floating, but the steady pressure of Adam's hand on my shoulder kept me grounded. I blinked rapidly, trying to clear the fog from my mind, but everything felt distant, disconnected. My thoughts were slipping through my fingers like sand. I heard footsteps approaching, then the unmistakable sound of a radio crackling. "Megan? Is she okay?" Lily's voice cut through the darkness. "I don't know," Adam said, his voice tight. "She's been through hell. But we're almost at the ranger station. We need help fast." The world was a blur of shapes and sounds, but I could sense the urgency in their voices. I could sense the movement, the way they were guiding me forward, pulling me towards safety. Felt like the longest walk of my life. The voices around me became louder, clearer, and the buzz of the radio cut through the tension in the air. "Megan? Can you hear me?" Someone asked. I didn't have the strength to answer. Couldn't even lift my head. The darkness was closing in again, and I felt myself slipping. But then, just when I thought I couldn't hold on any longer, I felt hands lifting me, gentle but firm. They guided me toward a brighter light. The hum of a vehicle engine filled the air, and the warmth of a car's interior washed over me. "She's still with us," Adam said softly, his voice filled with relief. "She's still with us." I didn't know how much longer I would last, but for now I was alive. I had made it. The interior of the truck was warm, far too warm for the state I was in. The smell of stale coffee and leather filled my nose, and the hum of the engine reverberated through my body as we bounced along the uneven forest road. My body felt strange, disconnected, almost as if it weren't mine anymore. I was alive, but I didn't feel alive. Adam had settled me into the back of the truck as gently as he could, but the pain was almost unbearable now. My leg had started to throb again, sharp bursts of agony that pulsed in time with my heartbeat, and my broken wrist felt like it was being crushed beneath the weight of my own body. I hadn't realized how cold it had gotten until the rush of warm air from the truck didn't seem to be enough to shake off the chill in my bones. I could feel the sweat soaking through my clothes, and my shirt clung to my back, but it didn't matter. The cold wasn't what bothered me the most. What bothered me was that I could barely think straight. I was still in shock. Megan? Can you hear me? Adam's voice pulled me back to the present, and I blinked, realizing I'd drifted off again. He was sitting in the passenger seat, his eyes flicking between me and the road ahead, his brow furrowed with concern. "I'm here," I rasped, my voice barely a whisper. "Just tired." I couldn't meet his gaze. I didn't want to. My mind kept returning to the bear, the crash, the way its claws had raked across my leg. It was as if it was still there, lingering just outside the window, waiting to finish what it had started. I kept looking out at the trees, hoping to see nothing, praying to see nothing. But the shadows seemed to twist and move in the corner of my vision, and I had to fight the urge to scream. I know, Adam replied, his voice soft but firm. I know you're tired. Just hang on. We're almost there. He was trying to be reassuring, but I could hear the strain in his voice. I wasn't sure if it was for my benefit or his own. "How far is it?" I asked, not really expecting an answer. "A few more minutes," he said, his fingers tapping nervously on the steering wheel. "Millie's ahead of us," she radioed in, "and the Rangers are on their way." The mention of the Rangers did little to ease the gnawing panic in my chest. It wasn't that I didn't trust them, it was that I had no idea if I would make it that far. I tried to shift slightly in the seat, but my body protested. The pressure on my leg was unbearable, and I could feel the blood seeping from the gash in my thigh, damp and sticky against my pants. Every bump in the road sent a shock of pain through my body, but I kept my jaw clenched, unwilling to show weakness. "We're going to get you to the hospital," Adam said again, his voice gentle. "Everything's going to be okay." I wanted to believe him. I really did. But in the back of my mind, something whispered that it wasn't going to be that easy. The bear had come so suddenly, so violently. It had been a moment of raw, instinctual danger. There was no logic to it, no reason. It had just happened. I looked down at my wrist, where it was cradled against my chest. The bone had definitely broken, the angle of my arm wrong and unnatural. The thought of moving it made my stomach turn. "How bad is it?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. Adam hesitated before answering, his gaze flicking to my wrist before returning to the road. "It's bad, he said quietly. But we'll get you some real help soon." Sir." There was a tremor in his voice, a crack I couldn't ignore. He was trying to stay calm for me, but I could hear the anxiety underneath. He knew I wasn't just hurt physically. I was hurting in ways I couldn't even explain. The attack had been more than just a physical injury. It was a violation of everything I thought I understood about the world, about nature, about safety. The truck hit another bump, and I winced, biting down on my lip to keep from crying out. Megan?" Adam asked again, his tone shifting, more urgent now. Can you tell me what happened? Can you walk me through it?" I turned my head slowly, forcing myself to meet his eyes. His expression was a mix of concern and something else. Curiosity, maybe, or an unspoken need to understand what had happened. I wasn't sure why he wanted to know. Maybe he thought it would help keep me conscious, help distract me from the pain. Or maybe he just needed to understand, to make sense of something that was utterly senseless. I swallowed hard. My throat felt tight, and my voice cracked when I spoke. I don't really know. I was just riding. I was on the trail, biking, and it happened so fast. I paused, trying to remember, but the images were fading, blurring. I didn't even see it at first. 1 second I was riding, and then there was a noise, and then it was on me. I couldn't get away. Adam's grip on the wheel tightened, his knuckles going way. And their lineages, that's rough. Sir, I nodded slowly, trying to steady my breath. It knocked me off my bike, and then, I think it scratched my leg. I tried to get up, but I couldn't, and then it came at me again. My voice trembled, and I took a shaky breath. I thought I was going to die. Adam didn't speak for a moment. He kept his eyes on the road, but I could feel his sympathy, his understanding. It was too much to process, too much to say aloud, but I felt a strange sense of relief in sharing it with him. I hadn't told anyone about what happened. I'd barely been able to think about it, let alone talk about it. "You don't have to say more," Adam said after a moment, his voice soft but steady. "I get it." We fell into silence for a while. The only sound, the low hum of the truck and the crunch of tires on gravel. My head felt heavy, and the darkness seemed to be closing in around me again. But I clung to the fact that I was still here. I was still breathing. A few minutes later, we rounded a bend, and I saw the flashing lights in the distance. The ranger station. I couldn't tell if it was real or a mirage, but the sight of those lights was like a beacon in the night. "We're here," Adam said, a note of relief in his voice. "Help's right there." I couldn't bring myself to feel anything more than numb. I was too tired, too worn down. My body felt like it was breaking apart, and I wasn't sure if I had enough strength left to hold myself together. But I knew one thing: I had made it. The truck pulled up to the station, and Adam cut the engine. The headlights cast long shadows across the ground, and I could see the silhouette of a ranger standing by the door, ready to help. He was tall, with a grizzled face and a calm, authoritative presence. As soon as he saw us, he moved toward the truck, his radio crackling in his hand. "We got a bear attack here," Adam said as he opened the door. "She's badly injured. We need help right now." The ranger nodded, already moving into action. "We'll get you inside." He said, his voice sharp and professional. "Stay with us, Megan. We've got you." The last thing I remember before the darkness fully overtook me was the feeling of hands lifting me. Steady and sure. I was on the edge of unconsciousness, but for the first time in what felt like forever, I felt like I was finally safe. And that was enough. When I woke up, the first thing I noticed was the sterile smell. Too clean, almost overwhelming. The blinding white of hospital lights stung my eyes, and I blinked rapidly, trying to clear the fog from my head. My body felt heavy, as though it had been weighed down by bricks, and I couldn't move without feeling sharp, pulsing pain everywhere. My leg, my wrist, my head. It all hurt, but it was a different kind of hurt now. The kind that meant I was alive. I shifted slightly, but it felt like even the smallest movement caused a wave of discomfort. Slowly, I turned my head to the side and found myself looking into the worried eyes of Adam. He was sitting in a chair next to my bed, his jacket off, sleeves rolled up, but his posture was stiff, like he didn't quite know how to sit without constantly waiting for something to happen. For Megan?" He said softly, his voice laced with both relief and exhaustion. "You're awake. How are you feeling?" I swallowed hard, trying to find my voice. Felt raw, like I hadn't used it in days. I paused, my mouth dry. "Diem Elife Kropka." Adam gave a tired but warm smile, though his eyes were still filled with concern. "You sure are." He reached for a cup of water on the small table next to my bed and helped me sit up a little so I could drink. "We almost lost you there, Megan. You were out cold for hours. It's a miracle you're still with us." Underscore. I took a long drink, the water cold and soothing as it ran down my throat. My mouth felt less like sandpaper afterward, but the reality of what had happened was still too much to process. The bear attack, the blood, the pain. I tried to shift again, this time more deliberately, but a jolt of pain ran through me, and I grimaced. My right arm was in a splint, my wrist wrapped tightly, and my leg was elevated, bandaged, with a few thick gauze pads pressed against the wound on my thigh. "You okay?" Adam asked, his voice full of worry as he watched my face. Yeah. I muttered, though I wasn't so sure. Just trying to figure out what happened. You don't have to do it all at once, Adam said gently. But the Rangers need a statement. They want to know exactly what went down. The words hit me like a cold slap. The Rangers. Yeah. He said, nodding. They've been trying to get a clear picture of what happened. The attack was pretty serious. They're looking to track the bear. The reality of the situation hit me all over again. I hadn't even thought about the bear since I'd been brought here. Had been so focused on my injuries, on just staying alive, that I hadn't considered the aftermath, how this was going to play out. This was no longer just an event I'd survived. It was something that had to be reported. Something that had to be documented. I don't know if I can do that, I said quietly, feeling a lump form in my throat. I don't even remember everything. Zolf blurry. Adam nodded in understanding, his voice soft. You don't have to be perfect. Just tell them what you remember. It's not about getting every little detail right. They just need to know what happened. Megan could help them track the bear. I didn't say anything at first. Part of me wanted to avoid it altogether. Avoid reliving it. I wasn't sure if I could. But the other part of me, the part that had witnessed the terror of that attack, knew that I had to speak up. I had to report it. There were others out there. Others who needed to know that the bear was active. It was instinctive, almost like an obligation. Before I could respond, a soft knock echoed from the door, and it swung open. A tall man with dark brown hair and a weathered face entered, wearing a ranger uniform. His name tag read _Harper. Megan Taylor? He asked, his voice steady and calm. I nodded slowly, trying not to wince as I moved. I'm Ranger Harper, he continued, his eyes scanning me with a professionalism that was comforting but somehow distant. I'm sorry to disturb you, but we need to take your statement. The sooner we can get a report, the sooner we can track the bear down. We're taking this seriously. I swallowed, feeling my pulse quicken. My stomach churned with unease. The weight of it all, the fact that my trauma was now part of some official record, felt like a second wave of pressure. I understand, I said, forcing myself to sit up straighter despite the pain. I'll do my best. Harper pulled out a small notebook and a pen from his jacket pocket, setting them on the edge of the bed. Adam stood up and stepped back, giving me space, but his eyes stayed on me, a silent reminder that I wasn't alone. I just need you to tell me what happened. Harper said, his voice steady. Don't worry about the details just yet. Take your time and tell me what you remember. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. My pulse was still racing, the adrenaline from the attack still echoing in my body. But I had to do this. It was part of the process now. I was biking on the trail. I began, my voice shaky but determined. It was late afternoon, and I was coming down a slope. I don't know the exact spot, but it was a little past the sign that said, Trailhead 5. About halfway through. Everything was normal at first. I paused, my throat tight. Then. There was a noise. It wasn't loud at first, just like something moving in the brush. I didn't see it until it was almost on me. I couldn't get out of the way in time. I was thrown off my bike. Harper nodded, his pen moving quickly across the notebook. Underscore go on. Then, sir, I took another shaky breath. Underscore I tried to get up. I don't know if it was the bear that knocked me down, or if I fell myself, but when I tried to move, it attacked. Came at me. Faster than I thought a bear could move. It scratched my leg first. I think it was trying to grab me. I couldn't protect myself. Underscore my voice faltered, but I kept going. Underscore I remember thinking I was going to die. Felt like I was completely helpless. Underscore Harper was silent for a moment, writing down the words. Adam was still standing in the corner, but he gave me a small, encouraging nod. I could tell this wasn't easy for him either. He had seen me after the attack, had seen the state I was in, and he knew how hard this was going to be for me. Underscore did you see the bear's size? Underscore Harper asked, glancing up from his notes. Underscore was big. Underscore, I said, the memory coming back in flashes. Underscore bigger than I thought a black bear should be. It wasn't a grizzly, but it was huge. The claws, they were so long. Underscore, I trailed off, shivering slightly at the recollection. Underscore anything else? Did it act aggressively? Was it hungry? Underscore, I thought for a moment, trying to piece together what I had felt, what I had seen. Underscore it didn't seem hungry. It wasn't like he was stalking me, like it wanted food. It was just attacking. I don't know if it was scared or trying to defend itself, but I don't think it cared about anything other than getting to me. Underscore, Harper's pen scratched across the page, but he didn't look up. He nodded again, as though processing everything I'd said. Underscore all right, Megan. I know this isn't easy, but it helps. We'll get the rest of the details from the rest of the team. Underscore he closed the notebook and stood up. Underscore we're going to make sure this doesn't happen again. Thank you for your cooperation. Underscore, as he turned to leave, Adam came back to my side. You did great, he said quietly, his voice full of quiet admiration. I gave a weak smile, but it didn't reach my eyes. Underscore I just hope they find it. Underscore I murmured. Underscore before it does this to someone else. Underscore, Adam nodded, and for a moment we sat in silence, each of us processing the weight of what had just happened. I wasn't sure if I felt better, but at least it was out there now. At least there was a record of it. At least I wasn't just a victim. I was part of the solution. I had a voice and I was going to make sure it was heard. The days following the attack were a blur of hospital rooms, painkillers, and people asking the same question over and over again. Underscore, are you feeling okay? Underscore, how's your leg? Underscore, what do you remember about the bear? Underscore, I was still trying to process the fact that I'd survived, but I wasn't prepared for the emotional weight of it all. The physical wounds were the easiest to deal with. They could be seen, bandaged, stitched up, and medicated. But the mental scars, they were something else entirely. The moment they released me from the hospital, I felt like I was walking into a different world. The park had become the story. The bear attack, my attack, it was all over social media, on local news, even in the newspapers. My face, blurry and pale in a hospital bed, was plastered all over the place. Some of the headlines were respectful, but others, most of them, felt more like sensationalized tabloid gossip. Survives bear attack in Glacier National Park. Black bear mauls woman on popular trail. Is Megan Taylor the new face of bear danger? I hadn't expected it to escalate this way. Sure, I'd heard the rangers talk about tracking the bear, but I never imagined it would turn into such a public spectacle. It made me feel like an object of curiosity, like my body wasn't my own anymore. I was sitting in my small apartment in Bozeman, still healing, still adjusting. I hadn't even made it back to campus for classes yet, and honestly, I didn't know if I wanted to. I kept thinking about the park, the trail, the sound of the bear charging at me. And then, The aftermath, the pain of being tossed aside like I was nothing. My body had survived, but my mind felt fragile, and I wasn't sure how long it would take to put all the pieces together again. Adam was there, of course. He came by almost every day, checking on me, bringing me food, helping me with things I couldn't do myself. He was a good friend, no more than that. He was a lifeline in this chaos. But even his presence didn't bring me peace. I felt like I couldn't escape the weight of what happened. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the bear. We were sitting in the kitchen, Adam stirring a pot of pasta while I absent-mindedly scrolled through my phone, looking at the new notifications piling up on my social media. Some were messages of support, others just curious strangers asking for details about the attack, some of them in an almost invasive way. One in particular caught my attention. _Hey Megan, I saw the story on the news. Is it true you were biking alone? Isn't that dangerous? I heard it was a grizzly. Were you scared? I mean, it must have been terrifying to be attacked like that. The comment made my skin crawl. These people didn't even see me as a person. They saw me as some kind of spectacle. I didn't owe them an explanation, but something about it still dug into me. Adam noticed the change in my demeanor. What's up? He asked, his eyes flicking from the stove to me. For someone being a jerk online. I didn't say anything at first, just stared at the message for a few seconds. It's weird. I finally muttered. How people treat something like this. Like it's a story to them, not a real thing. Like I'm just some headline. Adam sighed, setting the spoon down. People don't get it. They hear about something like this and they're curious. They want to know what happened. But they forget there's a person behind it all. You're not a headline, Megan. You're still you. I gave a tight nod, but I didn't feel like me anymore. The attack had changed everything. It was hard to explain. People would say things like at least you survived . Like that should be enough to make everything okay. But it wasn't. Surviving wasn't enough when part of you felt like it had been taken from you. A piece of me. My sense of safety, my trust in the wilderness was gone. You know, Adam said, changing the subject. Where the rangers did find the bear. I looked up at him. They did. He nodded, his expression darkening. Yeah. It's been causing trouble in the area for a while now. They think it was the same one that attacked you. They're calling it a problem bear now. They don't know why it did what it did, but they're not taking any chances. My heart sank at the thought of the bear still out there. I had been hoping it would just go away, fade into the wilderness and leave people alone. But he wasn't that simple, was it? Bears didn't just go away . They were driven by instincts I couldn't understand, and I couldn't pretend to know what had triggered that attack. The idea that it might come back, that it could hurt someone else, made the walls feel like they were closing in around me. They're not going to put it down, are they? I asked, my voice tight. Adam hesitated, then shook his head. They don't want to. They're going to try and trap it, relocate it to a more remote area. But there's always a chance it'll come back, especially if it's been exposed to humans. He paused, his face unreadable. It's a tough situation, Megan. The rangers don't like killing animals unless it's absolutely necessary. The weight of his words settled over me like a lead blanket. I had no idea what to feel. On the one hand, I didn't want the bear to be killed. It wasn't the bear's fault. It was just doing what bears do. But on the other hand, I knew that the longer it was out there, the more likely it was to attack again. It was a ticking time bomb. I dropped my phone on the table and ran my hand through my hair. I should have done something differently. Maybe if I hadn't been on the trail by myself, this wouldn't have happened. Adam looked at me sharply. You can't think like that. The bear was just acting on instinct. You couldn't have known, and you couldn't have prevented it. But I could have avoided it. So the words spilled out before I could stop them. I should have been more cautious, taken a different route. Maybe it wouldn't have happened if I hadn't been so reckless. Adam's eyes softened, and he moved over to where I was sitting, placing a hand on my shoulder. You weren't reckless, Megan. You were doing what you love. This wasn't your fault. I took a shaky breath, fighting back tears. I just want to go back to normal. Adam didn't answer right away, but his presence was a quiet comfort, the steady reassurance that I wasn't alone in this. After a long moment, he spoke again. Maybe you won't go back to the way you were, but you can move forward. You'll figure out what normal means for you now. I nodded slowly, letting the words settle in. I didn't know if I believed them yet, but I wanted to. Just as I opened my mouth to respond, my phone buzzed again. This time, I didn't need to look to know it was another comment on one of the stories. But instead of the usual barrage of insensitive questions and intrusive remarks, this one was different. Megan, I'm so sorry to hear what happened. I was at the park that day too. I saw the bear, and I didn't know what was going on until after. I can't imagine what you went through, but I'm glad you're alive. Please don't let this define you. You're stronger than you think. I stared at the message for a long time, the words sinking in slowly. A stranger, someone who had been there, who had witnessed a piece of what happened. And yet they understood. It felt like a thread, a tiny but important lifeline. Maybe, just maybe, there was a way forward after all. I don't know about normal, I said softly to Adam, my voice steadier now. But I think I'm starting to figure it out. The weeks after the bear attack felt like I was treading water, trying to stay afloat in a sea of uncertainty. I wasn't sure what I was supposed to do next. I wasn't even sure what I wanted to do. School, which had once been my focus, now felt like a distant memory, a task I could barely summon the energy to consider. My wrist was still in a cast, my legs still bandaged, though the pain had subsided to an ache that lingered in the background of every moment. It was the emotional scars, the ones that no one could see, that were the hardest to navigate. The bear attack had shattered something deep inside me, and though I was physically healing, I wasn't sure if I'd ever feel whole again. I was sitting in my small, dimly lit apartment on a Saturday afternoon, a book open in front of me, but the words blurred together in my mind. The TV was on in the background, but I wasn't really paying attention. My phone buzzed on the coffee table, and I picked it up automatically. Another notification, another message. Megan, I heard about the bear attack. Are you okay? It was from an old friend from high school, Katie. I hadn't talked to her in months, but the message was enough to make me feel even more disconnected. She wasn't the first person to check in, but every time someone reached out, it was a reminder of the way my life had been twisted, bent out of shape by the attack. I hadn't been the same person since that day, and I wasn't sure I ever would be. I texted a quick response. I'm fine, just trying to get through it. I stared at the screen for a moment longer before placing the phone back down, the same way I'd done countless times before. I'd been giving the same answer to everyone. I wasn't fine. I was still trying to figure out how to live with what had happened. There was a knock at the door. I hadn't been expecting anyone. My stomach tightened, a reflex that was becoming too familiar, as though I was bracing myself for something I couldn't control. The sound of the knock felt too loud, like a thunderclap, and for a moment, I couldn't bring myself to move. Megan? It's Adam, came a familiar voice from the other side. Can I come in? I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding and made my way to the door. Opening it slowly, Adam was standing there, a warm smile on his face, though his eyes still carried the weight of everything we'd both been through. I hadn't seen him much in the past week. He'd been busy with his own work, and I'd been avoiding socializing, hiding from the world like a ghost. I said, stepping aside to let him in. What's up? Underscore, I brought lunch, he said, holding up a brown paper bag from the local deli. Figured you could use some real food for a change. I raised an eyebrow. I'm not that bad. I said, smiling despite myself. The gesture was small, but it felt like a crack in the wall I'd been building around myself. He stepped inside, setting the bag on the kitchen counter. You've been living off granola bars and instant noodles, haven't you? I couldn't help but laugh, though it was more out of self-deprecation than humor. Maybe. I sighed, sitting down at the kitchen table. It's hard to care about anything right now. Adam sat across from me, his face softening with concern. I get it, he said, his voice quiet. But you can't keep hiding in here. You have to start living again, Megan. I looked away from him, staring down at my hands. My wrist still throbbed under the cast, and my leg ached where the bear had clawed at it. But it was the memory of the bear. The feeling of its claws raking against my skin, the sound of its growl in my ears, that haunted me the most. It wasn't just the physical pain anymore. It was the fear, the vulnerability, the helplessness. I could still feel the terror in my bones, the weight of it pressing down on me. I don't know if I can, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I'm not the same person I was before. Sir. Adam didn't answer right away, but when he did, his voice was gentle. You're still Megan, even if you don't feel like it right now. You don't have to be the same person, but you can still move forward. I shook my head, frustrated with myself. How? How do I do that? How do I forget? Everything. The words came out harsh, like a confession. I hadn't been able to forget the bear. Not for 1 minute. It was always there, lurking in the background, ready to rise up at any moment. You don't forget, Adam said softly. You learn how to live with it. You don't have to erase the memory, but you can stop letting it control you. I looked at him, my eyes burning with unspoken emotions. You think I can just move on from this? I think you can answer, Adam said, his voice steady. I think you can take small steps. It's not about moving on right away, it's about moving forward when you're ready. And I'm here to help you, Megan. I'm not going anywhere. His words were a lifeline. I didn't know if I could believe him, but the sincerity in his voice made me want to. I've been thinking, Adam continued, breaking the silence. Maybe you could come with me on a short trip. Just the two of us. I know the park's still fresh for you, but we don't have to go to the trail where it happened. We could just go for a walk in a different part of the park. Take it slow. You don't have to do anything you're not ready for. I stared at him, the idea of returning to the park sending a shiver down my spine. The thought of stepping back onto that trail, walking where the bear had attacked, felt like an impossibility. But at the same time, something in me wanted to do it. I wanted to prove to myself that I wasn't afraid to live my life again. The idea of reclaiming some small part of what the bear had taken from me. It was almost tempting. I don't know if I'm ready. I said honestly. I'm still scared, Adam. Every time I think about going back, I freeze. I know, he said quietly, his voice full of understanding. And you don't have to go today. You don't have to go next week either. But whenever you feel like you're ready, I'll be there with you. I could feel the weight of his words settle into me, like a seed planted deep inside, something that might grow over time. I didn't know when I'd be ready to go back to the park, or if I'd ever be truly ready. But for the first time since the attack, the possibility didn't seem as terrifying. Maybe it wouldn't be about erasing the memory of the bear. Maybe it would be about standing in the place where it happened and choosing not to let it define me. I'll think about it, I said softly, looking up at him. Adam smiled, his eyes full of quiet hope. Underscore, that's all I ask. We sat there for a long while, eating lunch and talking about anything and everything except the bear, except the attack. I could feel the healing beginning, not just in my body, but in my mind. Slowly, maybe I was learning how to live with the memory. And maybe, just maybe, I was starting to believe that I could live beyond it.